So what we teach is what we allow. So currently, if the culture that you go to work to every day and you pay people to be there is one that you don't enjoy and that's toxic, why are you allowing that? Because it's a product of what we've created. Welcome to the Culture-neer podcast. I'm going to be your host today, Terry Gwaltney, where we're going to be talking about how we can grow a culture where your employees refuse to leave and your customers can't resist. You know, culture, when we think about it and we talk about it, have a lot of these conversations, I get so many different definitions of what culture really is. It's always been amazing to me on how much has been written on this topic, but yet it seems like so little is truly understood. And this topic is so foundational to any for-profit or nonprofit organization, sports team. You know, you think about sports, I mean, you can have some of the best athletes in the world. And if the culture stinks and it's toxic and people don't get along, or you have somebody that is really just in it for themselves and they're not a team player, it really doesn't matter how much talent you have. It still doesn't end up with success or winning. And so super, super important. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about. Why is culture so important today? I want us to think about that because I believe that culture can truly be the secret sauce of any organization. You know, there's a lot of things, especially in business, that we do that our competitors can look and see, wow, they're having success with that. And so let's imitate that. Let's copy that and make that our own. But the one thing that they can't steal is your culture. And your culture is really it's a combination of all the character of the people that are on your team. It's shared values. It becomes a shared language. It becomes very, very unique to you, which is why it really can give you the competitive advantage. I think if you look very far, you'll see that many of the successful companies, it's not just about the product that they have, and it's not just about the service, but what's really supporting all that, what's really making them the most innovative in their industry or the most service-oriented in the hospitality industry can be tracked back to their culture. You see, every time you experience, I'll give you an example. If you ever went to a restaurant and maybe it's your favorite restaurant, so you go there on special occasions, you know the food's going to be great, that when you take maybe your spouse or your significant other there, it's a way to conveying that this is an important night, something to remember. You know, I value you. And then you go that one night and the chef is still there and the food is still great, but the service is horrible. And what I mean is, they're very unattentive to your needs. You see them in the corner talking, texting on their phone, and it started before they ever seated you, and you knew, oh, this possibly I could be in for a long night. What you were experiencing was the culture of that organization, and that's what's, I think, important for us as business owners and leaders, is to remember that every time our potential customers have an interaction with our team, our staff, our employees, they're experiencing our culture. And so that's why your culture is so important, because that customer experience will never rise above the experience that your employees are having with your company. And let me elaborate on that just for a minute. You think about that. What does that really mean? Well, if you have team members that don't feel valued, they don't feel like they're important, and they don't feel like they're appreciated, there's not much motivation for them to go above and beyond to serve your customers, to create a raving fan, to hopefully create a repeat business with that interaction with that customer. There's not much motivation for that person to want them to be a customer for life. Why? Because they feel like a number. They don't feel valued, and for them, it's really nothing more than a job. Now let's contrast that with a person that comes to work every day and they feel valued. They feel appreciated. They feel like that what they're doing makes a difference. That person not only reads the mission statement that's on the wall in the lunchroom, that person understands that they have a mission when they come to work that day. And so their team that they lead is highly engaged. They don't just show up and wait for the clock to be able to punch out. They're literally looking to go above and beyond every single day. That's what produces a highly engaged team. I like what Peter Drucker said. I'm going to read this to you. Peter Drucker was known as one of the most foremost leadership management gurus. And this is a direct quote. He said, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." In other words, the impact that culture can have on an organization is far more valuable than just having a good strategy for success. Because we can have the best laid plans, and if they're carried out by people who don't care, if the people that are there to share your values and make decisions to serve your customers are not aligned with you, then you don't win anyway. Does that make sense? I think that statement, when I read it, I thought was just so powerful because it really just sums it up. It's not that we don't need a good strategy. It's not that we don't need to try to develop the best team that we've got. But if we overlook and underestimate the value of culture and alignment and shared values, then we miss the boat because that strategy will not be able to sustain success over the long haul. So again, a great culture is often the secret sauce of a highly successful organization. I'm going to give you some of the things. When you see a great culture, these are some of the things you can identify by. I encourage you, if you've got a pen and a pad today, to maybe write some of this down, because my goal as we take this leadership journey and we talk about culture, it's how can we become better leaders with the people that we're serving on our team? And then how can we grow that organization to such a place to where we have success in the field that we're in, that now that organization can also be an instrument to impact people for good in our communities. It's kind of the bookends of why I think, for me personally, culture is so important. You know, I understand the influence that I have with the people that I lead and the responsibility that I have to serve them and to serve them well. I also, realize that as leaders, we need something more than just the definition of typical success. I think for most of us, what we're looking for is significance. And our organizations can make significant impacts in the communities we serve if we have a healthy culture. But here's some of the benefits. A great culture in the workplace. It fosters increased employee engagement. It decreases employee turnover. It supports strong brand identity. It elevates productivity. It creates transformational power. It produces top performers. It nurtures effective onboarding. And it provides a healthy team environment. Now, the reason that I share that with you is when we started talking about this a few moments ago, for most, I think when we think about culture, our first response is, well, it's ping pong tables at work, it's fuzzy couches, it's people bringing their pets to work, it's casual Wednesday, Friday, whatever the day. And from a business standpoint, sometimes all that can seem like, that just seems like a lot of wasted money and a poor investment of time in order to just go out and try to get our employees to do what we hired them to do to begin with. But that's not really the definition of culture. And I want you to see as we talk through this, that there's a direct benefit on the bottom line for you as a business leader, for your employees to really be engaged and be thriving in an environment and a culture that makes them feel valued. Anise Kavanaugh said this. I thought this was interesting. He said, most people leave their job because of the culture or their manager. They're not feeling seen. They're not feeling valued. They're not doing work that's meaningful. So they become disconnected from purpose and they don't feel trusted. And more often than not, she said, it's a combination of all the above. What do you think about that? It wasn't necessarily they were leaving because of what they were having to do on a day-to-day basis. It wasn't the grind. They weren't leaving because they weren't paid enough. They were leaving because of all these reasons that really have to do with culture. So you've got to care for your culture almost like you're caring for your baby if you're a parent. In other words, you hear people talk about their businesses many times, entrepreneurs specifically, when they start a business, it's like they talk about like, that's my baby, that's my, what they're saying is they were there in the beginning. They helped birth something. They brought to life something that was only seen in the theater of their mind. They may have brought to life something that other people said was impossible. And so they hold on to that. But what happens is they begin to nurture it. And what they allow is what they teach. And you think about that just from a parenting perspective. What you allow to go on in your home is what you're teaching. So if you allow one of your children to throw a strategically planned fit every time you approach the cash register at the grocery store, where they're smart enough to put all the candy at eye level for that last minute buy, and they drop to the floor and they throw a temper tantrum, and every time you give in, what are you doing? You're teaching them that that's the way that is acceptable to get what you want. And so believe me, a 3-year-old can be a strategic thinker. And you've just experienced that manipulation at that moment. But because you chose to give into it, now you're teaching that that's okay. Now think about that just for a moment in our workplaces. So what we teach is what we allow. So currently, if the culture that you go to work to every day and you pay people to be there is one that you don't enjoy and that's toxic, why are you allowing that? Because it's a product of what we've created. And so you have to go back and nurture that just like you do a child. There will be times that you will have to bring correction to it. There's times that you're going to have to really brag on it and just breathe life into it. But my point is you're going to have to pay attention to it. It is your responsibility. You are the leader. What you allow is what you teach in your home as well as in your organization. Think about that with me just for a minute. I also know that organizations with cultures that are healthy, they have a more profitable bottom line. Now, if I'm speaking to a bunch of leaders, what I'm trying to do is lay the groundwork for you to look at this culture thing and realize it's as important as it really is. I think what happens many times is we feel like, well, I'm just trying to chase payroll and make sure I can make payroll on Friday. I'm just trying to make sure that, we can get all of this work done. I'm already putting in 60 to 70 hours a week. Culture is a great thing when, for a big corporation or maybe for when we get much larger. But the reality is if you want to achieve those things and be able to sustain them, culture is really one of the most basic foundational things to the long-term health and success of any organization. And so it does directly impact the bottom line because people that are highly engaged can do more work than 20% bigger team that is just simply showing up for a paycheck. You need to give people more than a paycheck. You need to give them a sense of purpose. And that's what true healthy culture does, is people come and realize I am a part of something bigger than myself. I am doing something that matters. And the reason that they know that is because you're telling them that. You're telling them that as you walk by to encourage them. You're telling them and how your reward system is set up for at work. Because just like we said a while ago, what you teach is what you allow. Well, what you reward is what gets repeated. And so what behavior are you rewarding? What behavior do you want repeated? Maybe you need to begin to set out and be very, very intentional about what you want to see nurtured in your organization. I can promise you that the benefits far outweigh the investment. You want your team to feel valued and cared for, or they're not going to value and care for your customers the way you want to. Remember this, the way your team is treated is eventually the way your customers are going to be treated as well. that customer experience is never going to be greater than your team members' experience. It's just, there's no better way to say that, but I think it bears repeating over and over again, because I think we focus so many times on how do I deliver a better customer experience? You need to be focused on how you deliver a better employee experience. The byproduct of that will be a better customer experience. So listen, the culture of your organization, it really becomes the fertile ground that grows a great brand. Now, you can think about a lot of great brands, but when brands grow to a place to where they're great in the customer's eyes, what does that do? Well, one, they will pick you over other brands, and they won't make that decision based on price. So think about that. When your brand, when that culture grows a great brand, people also want to be aligned with you because they identify with maybe what you stand for, what your cause is, what that brand is representing. They want to feel like they're a part of that. If I was going to go out and I wanted to do something really, really special for my wife, I wouldn't go to Walmart to buy her a purse. I would go buy a purse from Louis Vuitton. Why? Both could carry the same amount of product. You may even find one that looks somewhat similar. But if I really want to convey how much value and how much I appreciate her because that's something she enjoys but would never buy for herself, I'm going to go align myself with that brand because it's going to make her feel extra special because people have this feeling about that particular brand. And so for us as business owners, we want to create that fertile ground that grows the kind of brand that when people are looking at 3 different products, they're not paying so much attention to the price. It becomes more about value. It becomes more about values and what people are aligning to and who they want to do business with. And that's up to you and me to be able to create that and then to be able to nurture that. You want to create a brand that your customers want to experience. They're going to be far less concerned about price, and they're going to be more focused on the value and simply the excitement of your product or the benefit of using your service. And if it is the fertile ground, it's going to influence what people are willing to pay for your product or for your service. Now, we're talking about why is culture important. I think that's pretty important. If that influences what people are willing to pay, then I think culture is probably really important. I kind of want to wrap this up today, and I want to talk about this. As a business leader, the team of people that you lead are under your influence for probably 40 to 50 hours a week. Some of those people may have a life coach that they've hired. They may spend 30 minutes a week with them. They may go to a house of worship to where they're under the influence of a minister for 45 minutes a week. You, as a business leader, are shaping an environment and have influence in their lives for probably 40 to 50 hours a week. That's a massive amount of responsibility. It's also a tremendous opportunity, which is why you need to look at this from the standpoint of I can really make a difference in the lives of the people that I'm leading, and we together can make a difference in the communities that we're serving. John Mackey, Whole Foods owner, CEO, said this. He said, if you're lucky enough to be someone's employer, you have a moral obligation to make sure your people look forward to coming to work in the morning. This sums up the ultimate outcome of a great culture. And we'll make others ask, what is the secret of your success? So let's do a recap today as we wrap this up. A great culture is often the secret sauce of a highly successful organization, okay? It attracts talent, it impacts happiness and the fulfillment of team members. It drives engagement between the leadership, the employees, and it influences overall performance. Without a great culture, our organizations will lose momentum, we can lose talent, we can even lose profit, we can get beat by our competition, and we can also lose market share. Much like a parent is responsible for nurturing and the care of their baby, you're responsible for the nurture and the care of your team members to create a healthy organization. Organizations with great cultures have a more profitable bottom line, In the same way that a healthy culture in the workplace impacts your employees for the better in the personal aspects of their life, it also nurtures a strong competitive advantage for providing your customers amazing customer experiences that are worth talking about. And finally, a great culture is essential to developing and nurturing team members with loyal, upstanding character who look for opportunities to create moments of magic for your customers and consequently raving fans for your organization. So remember, culture can only be as healthy as the leader, and your customer's experience will never be greater than your employee's experience. We'll see you next time on the Culture-neer podcast. Terry Gwaltney from the Culture-neer podcast. Listen, I want to say thank you for listening to the podcast today. I also want to encourage you to help us get the message out to more people. If you could like, share, and review this content on wherever you consume it, if you go into YouTube or LinkedIn or just whatever your social media channels are, and you could even share it, that would be a big help to us here at the Culture-neer podcast. Also, if you'd like some more information, you can go to www.terrygwaltney.com where we have updates. We also have more resources. We share articles there. And you also can find our new book there called The Culture-neer. Again, we want to thank you again for taking time just to listen to the podcast or view it on YouTube. It's our goal to spend 20 or 30 minutes each time we're together to help grow your culture to a point where your employees refuse to leave and your customers can't resist. This is Terry. We'll talk to you soon.